Hello, I'm Matt Williamson at Williamson NFL, and the time has come to predict the biggest game of the year, and I'm pretty darn excited about it. Check me out on the pregame show, Saturday standalone game. I am recording this Thursday right around noon, so if some injury news breaks that I'm unaware of, so be it, and I will get back to you guys, of course, after the game on Saturday, as always. But we got 3 games before Sunday, all of whom look like AFC playoff teams. But this is the one to talk about. This is the biggest game of the year for the Steelers. They can lock up the division. And speaking of injuries, I expect basically everyone to play for the Steelers. Maybe I'm wrong, but all indications that I'm getting from the South Side are they're going to have Watt, they're going to have Pickens. Maybe a limited capacity, I don't know, but I get the feeling that they're not real worried about the injury situation. Ogunjobi, Elliott seems to be the one that's kind of 50-50-ish, but all in all, I expect the Steelers to be quite healthy. So I'm operating under those assumptions. Now, I think Tomlin has a coaching advantage. I have great respect for Harbaugh. I have great respect for both these coaches. I mean, in the history of the league, no two coaches have squared off more often than these two. But I think that's starting to clearly favor Tomlin, and that he has a better bead on Harbaugh than the other way around, or knows how to get in his head, or whatever juju he's got going on. I think that favors Tomlin, and just that head-to-head look across the field at the opposing head coach, prep, all that stuff. I think that favors the Steelers. The winning in the margin stuff, which this game often comes down to, greatly favors the Steelers. To me, or any metric you look at, the Steelers are at worst the second best special teams unit in the league, and I personally think they are number 1. Their kicker is far better than Baltimore's, believe that or not. Tucker is kind of a mess at this point, and I wonder, in such a big game, will Harbaugh trust his kicker? Could they punt more? Could they go for it on 4th more? Could they do something unusual, fake punt, something like that, because they don't trust Tucker? So special teams greatly favors the Steelers. Penalties greatly favors the Steelers. Pittsburgh's kind of middle of the road in terms of penalties, but Baltimore's the worst. I mean, the game when they blew out the Giants last week, ton of penalties. So that favors Pittsburgh, and certainly turnovers. Again, Baltimore's not bad. They don't turn the ball over much. Lamar's not throwing picks, but they don't take the ball away much. And anyway you cut it, I mean, the Steelers have the best turnover differential in the whole league. So if you're the best special teams in the league, they have the worst penalties in the league. Steelers have the best turnover ratio in the league. All those things are super important, especially in a game like this. It almost always comes down to a 3-point game. And I saw the spread is 6 or 6.5. That surprised me right off the bat and made me think Vegas thinks Watt and Pickens and those guys aren't playing. Maybe it's changed. I don't know. I'm not on top of the betting world. But so all those intangibles, including coaching, but I'm not necessarily going to lump in scheme here. I mean, I do think Dean Pease coming back and taking over this defense has really solidified things. I think that the Ravens are really well coached and well schemed on offense. But I do give the head coaching nod to Pittsburgh. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number 1 source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today and get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's start when the Steelers have the football. Now, they have firmed some things up on defense. They allowed so many big plays, a lot of bad miscommunication for much of the year, and that seems to be better. I mean, they are not allowing the big pass plays over the top anymore. Steelers are still going to try them, especially with Pickens. As I mentioned earlier in the week, I hope the Steelers kind of streamline their usage of their skill position players. You know, if it's 2 receivers, I want it to be Austin and Pickens. You know, less Patterson, less Hayward. You get my drift. Pretty 50-50-ish running back rotation. It's hard to run on these guys. It really is. But running backs catch a lot of passes, and that's been a problem for them. And I mentioned the changes they made. They took the young pup out, you know, Queen's replacement, and replaced them basically with a veteran, solid linebacker type that it just isn't as dynamic. You know, they've lost some team speed there, but they got a little bit more stability. They've also benched Marcus Williams, their deep free safety, and replaced him with Washington, who's like a 5'8" safety slot corner type. And Hamilton's playing a lot more in the deep middle and well off the field. And I would imagine, as was the case when his teams met before, Hamilton will be the guy over top of Pickens a high percentage of the time. And where I'm going with this in the passing game is particularly, and Humphrey's basically always in the nickel, especially when they're in three corners, obviously. He plays outside in 2, but he's the nickel now, where that used to be Millette and Hamilton, and you know, they've solidified some spots. But I do think that when you're throwing the football against their linebackers or safeties, the, you know, Freiermuth, middle of the field stuff, the Warren, that I'm looking at guys not named Hamilton or Roquan. And there's several to pick on. You know, there are some holes in this defense to attack in the passing game with Warren, Muth, etc. I also don't love their corners, but their corners are good. But that's a lot of where their penalties come from. They're very grabby. They get beat and drag you down. You know, I would imagine the Steelers will draw a DPI or 2, especially Pickens. But I do worry about the consistency of this run game. I'm sure Wilson will quarterback and orchestrate the whole thing pretty well. I would imagine you see a lot of heavy personnel. You know, Washington should be out there high percentage of the time. And I like the Steelers' physicality. But the running game to me just is leaving me a little wanting, you know, in that if you're going to be one of the 2 or 3 heaviest run teams in the league, you can't be the second worst yards per carry team. You know, I mean, I keep saying this, and it's something I'm going to harp on all offseason. You might get sick of me saying it, but you're averaging 3.9 a carry, and you're one of the absolute run heaviest teams in the league. That needs to be at 4.3, 4.4. You know, I mean, that's how, you know, you can really make a difference in the run game, and I don't think it's going to change for this game. You know, a great example is the Eagles are the run heaviest team in the league, and they average like 6 yards a carry. You know, you run 3.9, ain't cutting it. So I think it'll be. I expect production when the Steelers have the ball. Kind of getting to that point with this offense, Eagle game aside, that they're going to move the ball, they're going to score points, probably with some regularity against just about every opponent. But I don't expect bombs away 35 points, you know. Getting a similar result to when they played the Bengals, nothing like that. The other side of the ball, I definitely think the Steelers have serious advantages in the trenches. Their left guard versus Cam Hayward, their right tackle versus Watt, pretty much across the board favors the Steelers. And that's great because everyone's blitzing Lamar at a very high rate. I don't think the Steelers will. I really don't. I think they can do as much damage with 4 as other teams are concocting with 5. Plus, Lamar is tearing the blitz apart. So I'm not exactly sure why people are blitzing him as much as they are. They also have such a good pass rush plan against him, and I expect that to continue. Boa constrictor the pocket. Keep him in there. Don't let him, you know, get out and improv. Don't let him step up. Don't let him comfortably step into his throws. And that's been very successful against him. That being said, he's better from the pocket than he's ever been in his career. And I'll be honest, I'm super impressed with how the Steelers manage Lamar, and 30 other teams he does so much more damage to than 31. But do we really think that's going to happen for the next decade? I mean, this guy is too good for that, in my opinion. Like, I'm not necessarily saying he's going to figure him out this week, but at some point, he's going to start producing against the Steelers. I mean, if he's a starter there for 15 years, I doubt twice a year he's going to have bad games, and then the other 15 games he's going to be great. I can't buy that. And he's playing so well now and has so few weaknesses now. I expect him to throw the football well against this team. Now, one thing the Steelers do well, which I think is really important to limiting Lamar, is they really focus on Mark Andrews. And to me, that's going to be Minkah. We saw Minkah move around a lot last week. We saw Minkah follow Andrews in weighty situations, red zone, third down, when these teams met before. And that's the beauty of Fitzpatrick. That's great because really, my favorite Mr. Mom reference, that's Lamar's Woody. They came into, not Woody, that's his Woody. They came in the league together. They grew up together. He began his career really throwing heavily in the middle of the field. That's his Kelsey to Mahomes, and I think the Steelers do a great job of taking that first read away, especially in weighty situations. But they're okay on the outside. I have growing concerns with the Steelers' corners, not named Porter. I don't think they're real equipped to play a lot of man. I don't expect Henry to go crazy, just because I think the only way to stop him is don't let his feet get going early. Some early penetration, make him start and stop, make him go laterally. Don't let him just get a head of steam roaring through the line of scrimmage. And I think because the Steelers penetrate and win at the line of scrimmage so well, Queen's familiarity, overall team speed on defense, Roberts coming down, meeting them in the hole, I think they'll do a nice job on Henry. So I don't think there'll be easy sledding for the Ravens offense by any stretch, but it's right there at the top of the league as one of the best units in the league. And I know the Steelers hold them down in Lamar, but I just can't imagine that's going to happen for eternity. I have the Ravens winning in their building, 24-23. I could be wrong. Steelers could absolutely win this game, and it's such a Tomlin thing to do. There's a lot of history that shows his winning percentage after a loss is incredibly good. His winning percentage against winning teams on the road, really, really good. His winning percentage when, an underdog, winning outright, really, really good. And again, I don't think they punted against the Eagles, but I do think the entire goal of the last month or so is to win this football game. And then you're kind of on easy street. And I think that that's very feasible. But I'm picking the Ravens. I think that they're really, really good, and Baltimore might win the Super Bowl, and this would be a really good step in the right direction. I also don't love that the Steelers defense had to play 9,000 snaps just 6 days ago. That's not ideal, obviously. But at least all these teams that are playing Christmas are all operating on the same amount of rest. I've told you before, the Ravens have a biggest rest advantage against their opponents of any team in the history of the league, which makes me crazy. But that's not the case in this one. And then all these teams flip and play on Christmas. We'll get to that, obviously. So that's my pick, 24-23 Ravens. I'll get back to you post-game as soon as I possibly can. All right, take care.